Okay, I can see it's 7 p.m. So welcome to tonight's event. Thank you for joining us on what has turned out to be a very beautiful Thursday evening, and we appreciate you being here. My name is Dave, and I'll be facilitating tonight's event to share information with you about 20 Milner Business Court and provide opportunity for you to speak with city staff and ask us questions. This is an online and telephone information session. We have people online on WebEx, and we have people joining us by phone. We also have, for the first time in our experience, language-specific phone lines in Mandarin and Cantonese. We're excited about using interpreters today. We're glad that we get a chance to allow everyone to participate, but please be patient with us as we're trying out this new technique. We'll share more about how to use the specific language lines shortly. For now, we'd like to share the project website. So if you can see at the bottom of the screen, it says visit the project website. That's www.toronto.ca/physical distancing shelters. And that's, for those of you listening in, that's all one word, physical distancing shelters. And you can find information about this meeting and further information after this meeting on the project website. So we're going to repeat that a few times through today's presentation because we want you to be able to be informed. I'd also like to say a happy Eid today. Today our meeting falls at the beginning of Eid, and we appreciate everyone who's in attendance this evening. So happy Eid and thank you. One last word about accessibility. If you do require some accommodation, phoning in tends to be better because your computer audio, the adaptive technology on your phone works better if you phone in. So you'll be able to hear and have a greater accessibility on your phone. For those of us who are joining by phone, please know that our presenters will describe the contents of the slides that they're presenting so that you'll be able to follow along. So once again, thank you, and we get started. And next slide, please. We'd like to ask Nicole Williams, who's also one of our presenters this evening, to share with us a land acknowledgement. Nicole, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to read the acknowledgement today. So the land I am standing on today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Thanks for sharing that. And next slide, please. As we mentioned, we are online through your laptop or your desktop computer, and some of our participants are here by phone. And this is the first time we're using, in a virtual information session like this, professional interpreters on language-specific phone lines, one for Mandarin, one for Cantonese, and then there's also our main event, which is in English. If you cannot hear or understand what is being said, please dial in at 416-915-6530 to connect to the session by telephone. The access code to connect in English, Mandarin, or Cantonese are outlined in this slide, and I'll read those aloud for those listening in. To connect to the main line in English, the access code is 133-792-5013, and you want to press the pound key afterwards. For Mandarin, the Mandarin specific line, your access code is 133-773-2347. And again, you may need to add the pound key after you've entered your access code. And finally, the Cantonese specific language line, the access code to enter is 133-528-7056. Press a pound afterwards. The pound key is sometimes known also as a hash key, so please use that afterwards. Next slide, please. Sorry, the recording and meeting tonight will be available on the website after this session. And it's very important that we recognize that the meeting is being recorded. Be advised that this meeting is recorded and your opinions, statements, and voice will become part of a public record. Participants are asked not to share any personal information about themselves and other people, such as name, address, and contact information within the meeting. If you wish to discuss a private matter, please contact us specifically at 20 Milner Business Court at gmail.com. I'm going to read that once again. The contact, if you have a specific or private matter you'd like to bring up with us, you can email us at 20 Milner Business Court at gmail.com. After the meeting, we will be adding the meeting summary to the website, and that's the website I gave you before. And we'll also be adding a closed captioned format of this video, this recording, as a YouTube video on the City of Toronto's YouTube channel. So once again, personal information will be included in this recording if it's shared. And so we ask that you refrain from using personal information. Next slide, please. We have a number of presenters this evening. Myself and Madeline Anderson are the community engagement facilitators brought in to work at 20 Milner Business Court for this, for the introduction of the temporary shelter. We'll be presenting. As well, we have Cynthia Lai with us, the City Councillor of Scarborough North in Ward 23. We'll also be joined by Sharon Campbell, who is the Project Director in Homelessness Initiatives and Prevention Services, part of Shelter Support and Housing Administration in the City of Toronto. Nicole Williams is with us. Nicole read us our land acknowledgement. She's the manager of the Scarborough Women's Shelter, which is part of Shelter Support and Housing Administration in the City of Toronto. So those are our presenters. Next slide, please. And I'll read you the purpose for today's discussion. Our purpose this evening is to provide an overview of the 20 Milner Business Court Temporary Shelter Program and the services and supports currently planned for the site. We're here to respond to questions, concerns, and offers of support from the community, and we're glad to have you with us this evening. We're also here to contribute altogether to the success of the shelter in the community. Next slide, please. So the agenda for the evening, we'll begin with some welcoming remarks from Councillor Lai, followed by the presentations about information from city staff. And that will be about 45 minutes before we start the Q&A session. We will give you more instructions before the Q&A session begins with instructions about how to use WebEx in order to phone in or to type in your messages. So we'll give you that instruction then. I want to also point out that during our question and answers, we'll be joined by Loretta Ramadan. And Loretta is the Project Director of Infrastructure Planning and Development in Shelter Support and Housing Administration at the City of Toronto. And she's going to be there to support us in the question and answer period. And I would just say just briefly that Shelter Support and Housing Administration is a mouthful. You might hear it referred to as SSHA. That refers to Shelter and Support Housing Administration. And finally, we'll have a short closing at the end. So next slide, please. And I'd like to ask Councillor Cynthia Lai to unmute herself and share your welcome.
Thank you, Dave, and good evening, everyone. I really appreciate all of you joining us tonight for this virtual public consultation on the temporarily women's shelter at 20 Milner Court, 20 Milner Business Court in our ward. I want to thank city staff for organizing, and I thank the consultants for chairing tonight's session. As your local councillor, I've always believed in caring for the vulnerable and for those who are less fortunate. It had become apparent throughout this pandemic that more and more people need our help. By opening a temporary shelter during this unprecedented time brings a sense of community to all of us. I'm here to listen, to hear your comments and questions. I'm particularly pleased that we have simultaneous translation for tonight's meeting in Cantonese and Mandarin. This meeting is part of a communication process where staff reach out to discuss the shelter and receive your feedback. Through my weekly email newsletter and on social media channels, I have shared information about tonight's meeting and distributed the frequently asked questions flyer. We will hear from staff who will make presentation on the shelter, and then there will be opportunities for your input, including a Q&A session to answer all the questions that you might have. I want to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to be with us, and I look forward to listening and hearing your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next slide, please. Before we begin presenting, we'd like to describe some of the accessibility options for this meeting. If you do require an accessibility-related accommodation, adaptive technologies on your phone often work the best. Panelists tonight will describe the content on the slides during the presentation, and the video recording of this meeting will be closed captioned when it's posted on the project website. If you felt like you missed something through the meeting or want to revisit the meeting, you will be able to see that on the video when it's posted. It's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the WebEx platform on your phone or computer. And you might do this during the presentations while you're listening. And that is getting a chance to know how to raise and unraise your hand to ask a question and how to type questions into the Q&A box, which helps makes the meeting move smoother. And we'll review how to do this again before we start the Q&A session. So you don't need to worry about it if you're not working on it yet. So next slide, please. It's very important that we engage tonight in a respectful discussion. And we ask everyone to be brief and limit yourself to one question or comment at a time. We want to go through as many questions as we can, and we ask you to keep your question to a single question. We ask you to be a good listener and share the space with your neighbors. There will be other opportunities to engage and offer feedback and insights. Please be patient. We will do our best to resolve any technical issues if they occur. And be respectful. The City of Toronto is an inclusive public organization. Racist or other forms of prejudicial, derogatory, or discriminatory comments and questions, including name calling, will not be tolerated. The next slide, please. The question and answer period will begin after the presentations. We will review how to raise hands and ask questions then. We will do our best to receive as many questions as possible between the various methods of participation, including the language-specific phone lines. And we will rotate the questions between the Q&A and the phone lines to people on the phone or on the computers, as well as including questions that we've received in advance. So we're going to be receiving our questions from different sources, but we're going to try and reach everyone to maximize participation. So there are two ways that we can really interact. Participants can type questions into the Q&A box, which is on the lower right of the screen on your computer, or verbally ask questions on audio. There's a way to do that on your computer, and there's a way to do that on your phone. And we'll explain the specifics of how to do that after the presentations and before the Q&A. Next slide. So I'll ask Sharon to unmute herself. Sharon is going to present on the City of Toronto Shelter Services and give us an overview. Sharon?
Hello, everyone. I must confess that I'm having some difficulties with my camera. So I just wanted you to be able to see who I am, but I'm just going to have to turn it off for now.
Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to take this time to thank you for taking your time this evening to join us to hear more about 20 Milner Business Court and the services and supports planned for the site. I'll walk you through the presentation that provides an overview of homelessness in Toronto and the services that Shelter Support and Housing Administration provides. I hope this presentation addresses some of the questions that you may have, and after the presentations, we will be available to answer your questions or respond to your concerns. Next slide, please. I'll start with the image that you see. I must confess that the room may look slightly different at the new location that we're going to, but this is an example of one of our spaces that we have. So Toronto Shelter System provides more than 6,000 spaces to support those experiencing homelessness, including approximately 3,000 spaces in new temporary shelters and hotel programs. Challenges in the shelter system have been compounded by opiate crisis and pressures on the shelter system, especially during COVID-19. Some of you may know that homelessness was on the rise since 2011. And we know that people who become homeless are staying in our shelters longer than they have in the past, with roughly 48% of total considered chronically homeless, that is, chronically homeless, meaning they're homeless for 6 months or more in the past year. Even before this pandemic, our system was near capacity, despite adding over 3,500 spaces in the last few years, which has almost doubled the size of the shelter system. Toronto's shelter system provides more than 6,000 spaces to support those experiencing homelessness, including 3,000 spaces in new temporary shelters and hotel programs. I just want to point out that challenges in the shelter system have been compounded, again, by the opiate crisis and pressures on our system. I believe I did say that before. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about occupancy in the shelter system. So while occupancy has decreased since the start of the pandemic, driven by a decline in the number of refugee claimants and families, capacity in the system for single adults or single individuals is currently higher than the same period last year. SSHA conducted its 5th needs assessment, street needs assessment, in April last month. And this is a citywide point-in-time count and survey of people experiencing homelessness in Toronto, conducted in collaboration with community partners in the homelessness sector. Our last street needs assessment in 2018 estimated that there were almost 9,000 people in Toronto who were homeless on any given night, with more than 500 of them staying outside. Results of the April 21 street needs assessment will be released publicly by September 2021. I encourage you to look for that when it comes out. It provides a very clear snapshot as to what we're experiencing. And I myself am interested in knowing more about it post-COVID, so look forward to that. This will provide critical data to understand the impact of the pandemic on homelessness and broader needs and barriers to services for people experiencing homelessness in Toronto. Next slide, please. So this is where some of our programs are located within our communities. Shelter Support and Housing is a division at the city who manages the emergency shelter system. We currently oversee over 80 shelters and 24-hour respite sites operated by skilled community agencies, and we directly operate over 20 shelter programs. As you can see, availability of emergency shelter varies across the city, as you can see from the map that's there. Our knowledge, expertise, and responsibility is focused on 3 outcomes. We want to provide people experiencing homelessness in Toronto access to safe, high-quality emergency shelter. People are provided housing-focused supports that ensure homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. And also low-income households have access to housing benefit programs that provide affordability and stability. Providing emergency shelter for people who are experiencing homelessness is an important community service that is offered across the city. Next slide, please. Sites are located within communities, which means that sites are located within communities, which means that they're often located near other community services like childcare centers, schools, and parks. They're also located within communities not only because it's important for people staying at these locations to be connected to the community, but shelters are only allowed in areas that are zoned as residential or mixed commercial residential use. And as a note, we cannot open shelters in areas zoned as industrial. Since 2020, Toronto has implemented the most comprehensive response to COVID-19 for people experiencing homelessness in Canada that focused on infection prevention, recovery, and housing. This plan continues to evolve and respond to current conditions, staying one step ahead to protect and prioritize people experiencing homelessness. This is what I'm, when I say what I'm about to say, I think, wow, this is what we've done. We've opened 25 new temporary sites to create physical distancing in the shelter system and provide space for people to move indoors from encampments. The city supporting the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine for people experiencing homelessness. As of April 23rd, over 1,900 people in the shelter system have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. As of March 2021, just under 6,000 people have moved from the shelter system to permanent housing during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Temporary shelter programs activated in response to COVID-19 by word. This map here shows 25 temporary sites opened across Toronto as part of our COVID-19 response. Given the number of sites that we needed, the city conducted an exhaustive search for space. We received inquiries and referrals from hotel operators, property managers, community members, developers, and landlords. The city is continuously reviewing its portfolio of temporary shelters to achieve physical distancing in the shelter system. The Women's Shelter Program at 20 Milner Business Court will be the only temporary shelter for people experiencing homelessness in Scarborough North, Ward 23. Next slide, please. Criteria for selecting a shelter location. Our goal is to open new shelters in neighborhoods across Toronto so that people can stay within their communities. On the normal circumstances, when searching for a new shelter location, staff will site shelters in locations that meet city bylaws in locations that allow shelters as of right use. So many of you have asked how we make decisions on the sites that are selected for a new shelter, and so I would like to spend a few minutes sharing information I hope is helpful. People experience homelessness for many reasons. Any one of us could experience homelessness. Each person in our shelter system was once a child with hopes and dreams that did not include growing up to be homeless. Next slide, please. Criteria for selecting a shelter location. Support Toronto's Housing Charter, Opportunity for All. We work with Real Estate Services Division to find feasible buildings and locations that are accessible and will provide adequate space. And we also seek out sites that are in close proximity to community services, such as libraries, public parks, pharmacies, and healthcare services, and public transit. Our goal is to ensure that there are services in all neighborhoods so that as much as possible, people can stay within their communities, maintain their employment, and stay connected with families and friends if they experience homelessness. We comply with city bylaws and Toronto's Housing Charter. We work with our real estate division, allowing them to source potential properties based on criteria we provide them. Once a potential property meets the zoning requirements is identified, we assess the suitability of the location for its access to transit and other services in the community, such as libraries, public parks, pharmacies, and healthcare services. In 2017, City Council delegated the authority to open new sites to staff. This means that sites are secured prior to commencing community engagement. In our normal process, we engage with communities after the site is secured and approximately 6 months before a site opens, and the focus of that engagement is the integration of the new program into the community. Next slide, please. Additional criteria for site selection during COVID-19. During the pandemic, in addition to the criteria used when selecting a location for a new shelter, the city also looked for turnkey ready with minimal retrofits required, suitable size that adequately meets physical distancing guidelines, and available, accessible, and affordable. During the pandemic, we had to implement innovative ways to respond quickly. Our goal, save lives and ensure the healthcare system did not become overwhelmed. We conducted an exhaustive search for locations. In looking for temporary locations rather than permanent locations, we focused on spaces that were more or less turnkey ready for operations with minimal retrofits required. We looked at sites that would adequately allow us to meet physical distancing guidelines. We also looked at sites that were available right away and those that were close to transit and were accessible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that overview, Sharon. Now we have a chance for Nicole Williams to share an overview of the shelter program at 20 Milner Business Court. Nicole?
Hi, thank you, Dave, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I think Sharon gave a good overview of the system as a whole, and I believe my part will be more about what Scarborough Women's Shelter is and can continue to be at 20 Milner Business Court. So Scarborough Women's is an existing program that's currently in a property that's being leased by Toronto Catholic District School Board. Toronto Catholic District School Board has always had plans to redevelop the property, and they've extended our lease throughout COVID, but we have to now ensure that the women continue to have space for physical distancing. So our wonderful team in infrastructure found a location in your ward in Councillor Lai, and the community have been notified, and we are now about to bring our existing program to the new ward. Currently, we can serve about 70 women at our site, which we plan on continuing as we move over, and there's access to a few more rooms if necessary. The women have 24/7 supports while staying at shelter. They have 24/7 staffing, which is frontline staff to help them with needs on a 24/7 basis, security. They have counselors that help them with in-depth supports with a housing first approach. So housing first is a principle that we use where our goal always for everyone is to get housing. So what can we do to get housing as fast as possible in an appropriate way to help people be successful? So that's the principle that will continue with our new program. The counselors also look at any other support needs that they have, whether it be, is it immigration? Is it, do they need supports for some trauma? Because we work in a trauma-informed way. That those are all things that we address on site with any woman that's staying at our location. We can. Although the city normally and shelters often have extensive recreational and social programming, we had to find ways to be able to do that in this new world of COVID, where there's physical distancing. And we've learned a lot of creative ways to be able to provide those supports. Women still participate in social and recreational programming, whether it's with staff on site, with each other, with community agencies. Currently, the women love doing art. There's lots of creative art projects, and there's even some women that do knitting together. And we hope that these activities would continue as they move on to our new site, ensuring physical distancing and doing it safely. There's always also space set up that we can support women who may want to participate in virtual sessions of kinds, whether it's be through their support services or it be recreational. Meals will be catered by local business, and so I believe that both, the shelter not only is helping, ensure that women are safe, that the women have a safe place to stay, but also we're really invested in helping local business. Other agencies, other people, and other businesses are remaining employed during a time where it's been very challenging for all of us. And we look forward to working with local business to continue, make sure that they are able to succeed through this very tough time as well. We work with Scarborough Health Network for support services for women, whether mostly related to COVID-related purposes right now when it comes to vaccination programs, which has been rolling out throughout the shelter system. Many of our women have received the COVID-19 vaccine, and we're looking forward to continue to vaccinate the women at the program. Staff are able to get vaccinated as well and participate in that to ensure that health and wellness of the broader community. Scarborough Health Network also offers a variety of other services that could help women in their needs, whether it's, they can offer some supports if it's diabetes related, or if it's, further support services related. So we're really grateful to have that connection with the Scarborough Health Network, and we're continuing to make more partnerships with health partners in our new location information and look forward to those opportunities. The on-site program will be for women staying at the shelter only. Women can access to the shelter by calling central intake. So we operate like other city shelters and throughout the city or all shelters throughout the city, my apologies, is that we have a central intake program where anyone can call for a shelter bed. The staff on the phone will, take down information and make the proper referral. What has been really great about having programs in local communities like Scarborough is that Sharon mentioned it before, that often people get to stay within their communities, and this has been really great to see as we move programs to where people actually need them. And if someone's from Scarborough and they've become homeless, they shouldn't have to leave Scarborough. So it's been a very lovely thing to be able to offer services like that to people from Scarborough. We have a diverse group of women currently, which we will continue to have, welcome new ones. And range from, and of all ages, all backgrounds, and have interests and diverse situations. We have seen women who are newly homeless, have had financial impacts from the pandemic, who may be temporarily without work. But we've also seen, successes in women obtaining work by jobs needed during the pandemic. So we've had women get jobs in certain service industries that are needed during this time, and it's helped them to meet their goals and move towards housing. We, as I mentioned earlier, housing first is our approach, and our counselors work really hard to network with local landlords, to network with Toronto Community Housing, other housing opportunities, and we offer things like housing allowances, and we have new programs such as coordinated access that help us place women throughout the city to meet their housing needs. Referrals are offered if women need referrals that are above and beyond the scope of what the shelter can provide, or it's of good interest to their quality of life. That's something that our counselors and our staff are continually doing. We follow all public health measures. That's the biggest reason why we have created the shelter, is to ensure that we're following all Toronto public health protocols. So a lot of work is done to make sure that the program is safe through infection prevention and control measures. And we take our lead from Toronto Public Health on how to ensure the safety of clients and staff when it comes to COVID-19. We've already connected with local business and local agencies and local supports such as Toronto Police Services. And I want to thank Toronto Police Services because there's already such a great outpouring of support and how we could work together to ensure that we meet the needs of the clients and make sure we all contribute to a safe and well community. Our focus is, ensuring that women are safe, secure, staff are safe and secure, and the community is safe and secure. So the shelter does its best to ensure that we provide 24/7 security cameras, and we have 24/7 guards on site for everyone's safety and security. I think that's it, Dave. I'm not sure if I have missed something, but I'm sure if I have, I will be more than happy to discuss it during the Q&A. And
Okay.
I'll give one, yeah.
Thank you very much for that overview. It's time that I will give my overview. about community engagement. And myself and Madeline Anderson, who's also on the call this evening, are the community engagement facilitators brought in to help support the opening of the temporary shelter. And we'll briefly describe our activities in community engagement right now. So the next slide. The city is committed to community engagement to ensure the success of the shelter in the community. This is what Sharon Campbell had mentioned in her overview as well. The community engagement process typically begins much earlier before the opening of a new service. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic accelerating the pace of opening new temporary sites, our engagement activities are taking place immediately prior to the service opening. We recognize that this is not ideal, but it was necessary given the risk of life due to COVID-19. More information on our community engagement will be available on the project website. There's some available now, and there will be more to continue. Next slide. A few actions that we are currently taking. The first was to engage community facilitators, and that's myself and Madeline. And we have been engaged in order to help track community concerns. And we do that. As we do that, we also look for ways that we can be active in connecting people in the community to the city staff or to one another, and to follow up on any of the concerns and questions that you have. And that's one of the reasons we like to really emphasize our email address, because that's the best way to reach us. And that's there on the bottom. We've also, as Nicole mentioned, been speaking with local businesses and service agencies, residents, and including the police services. And we've found a community that's ready to welcome this temporary shelter into the neighborhood. We continue to speak with more of the stakeholders, and want to find out as much information as we can to share with Nicole, Sharon, the counselor, and SSHA as we move along in the opening of the shelter. I want to once again pay attention to our email address, 20 Milner Business Court @gmail.com. For those listening in, 20 is the number, the digits, not the word, so 20. milnerbusinesscourt@gmail.com. It's a great place for us to get your questions, and we can always move those questions along to those people who are best suited to answer them. Next slide, please. So that concludes our presentations, and we can start getting ready to ask our questions and receive our answers. And so I want to reiterate once again that this is being recorded, and to be careful not to share private information. This will be on video, and your words will be captioned. So we will try our best not to use any contact information, names, addresses, or anything specific to individuals or businesses or organizations. Thank you. And also add here that in addition to our presenters that we've met and had fabulous overviews from, we'll be joined by Loretta Ramadan, who is the project director of infrastructure planning and development with SSHA. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So for those of you who've joined us by computer and you're on your laptop or you've got a desktop computer there, we're going to give you a quick preview or a quick example of how to ask questions in the English main event only. So this is if you're using your computer. You can see on the right-hand side a raise your hand icon. Now that's what we'll use if you wish to submit a question verbally. And when you press the button, the raise your hand button, it will be flagged for one of our facilitators in the back end who will see your first name. And if you are selected for asking a question, we're going to try and get through as many questions as we can. They will only use your first name, and they'll unmute you when it's your turn to ask the question. Now, in the bottom right of your screen, you will see a Q&A box. There's an icon. Sorry, a Q&A box will be in the bottom right of your screen, and that's where you can type a question. And only the staff that are helping with this meeting will see those questions. They're not going to be immediately published like a tweet on Twitter. They're going to be just only visible in the back end. And we ask you to ask questions to all our panelists and not directly to one or the other. But we will be directing the question as needed. Now, once we select that question from the Q&A box, your question will be read out loud for everyone to hear and then redirected to the panelist, and you will receive your response, and all the responses will be done verbally. So on the bottom right of your screen, there's an icon with participants and Q&A. Now, you might want to try this. Press to toggle the button between opening and closing participants and the Q&A panels. So you'll be able to test that. If it's a blue box, it means it's open. And if it's a black box, it means it's closed. Next slide, please. This is for those joining us by phone. Here are the basics for asking a question by phone. And again, the phone number and the access codes are on the screen. Those are the same as before. And again, we're going to say that this is our first time working with interpreters. So your patience with us as we transition between languages and to the specific language lines may be a little slow. So we are working our best to learn the process the best. So thanks for your patience. Now, for those calling in and you want to ask a question, you can do so verbally. And to do it, we also raise a hand, only it's a sound that we'll hear. And to raise your hand, it's to dial the *3, and that will alert our staff to know that you have a question. The facilitator will see a hand up beside the first 3 digits of your phone number, and that alerts us to know that you would like us to ask a question. Now, during the Q&A period, the facilitator will unmute you and let you know that you can speak. And if you wish to speak, and the interpreter then will be responding to what you have asked. Now, after your question has been answered, please dial *3 one more time, and that will bring your hand down. Thank you. Next slide. Now, we will do our best to receive as many questions as possible between the various methods of participation, phone, online, and Q&A box, and we will rotate between our live questions, our pre-written questions, ones we've received in advance, and those questions we get from the Q&A box. Our staff will continuously monitor and review the Q&A box to ensure that the most common issues are being addressed tonight. And if there are lots of questions, we may not be able to answer them all in this session. For questions that we don't get to, please reach out to us at the project Gmail account. I'm not going to read it one more time now. It'll come at the last slide, I promise. And there's a telephone number that's available on our website as well where you can reach us. So, and finally, before we get started, one more reminder about the code of conduct. Be brief. Try to keep your question limited to one at a time. Listen carefully to each other. Let's make it a shared space. And be patient. We'll do our best to resolve any technical errors if they occur. And be respectful. The City of Toronto is a public organization, and we won't tolerate language that is racist, derogatory, discriminatory, or simply name calling. So please keep that in mind. Next slide. Oh, sorry, not next slide. Thank you. I'm ready to actually pose the first question. And this is a question that was from a phone call I received earlier this week. And it was about how the temporary shelter will be taking new residents in the future. And I think this question should go to Nicole. Nicole?
Sure. So I give a little bit of an overview in my update, but how new residents will happen is through our central intake process, which is coordinated. So anybody who requires a shelter bed can call 311 and they'll be transferred to our central intake line where one of our staff will do an assessment if there's a availability and if it's the preference for a person to be at Scarborough Women's. That's how a new resident would be intaked. And residents will be brought over as well from the existing program. So that will be how our shelter will start building.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Carolyn, do we have any questions on the Mandarin specific line?
Currently, we do not have any questions on the Mandarin specific line.
Thank you. How about on the Cantonese specific line?
There are no questions on the Cantonese specific line.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask another question that was sent in, or we wrote written in to us in an email asking us, stating that they really welcome the shelter into the neighborhood and they'd like to help out. Is there a way to donate or volunteer with the shelter? And I think that is to be directed to Nicole again. Thank you.
Sure, and I see a question in the chat too about, participating, joining. I would say the best way to reach out about, whether it's to have any kind of connection with the shelter is to email us at sws@toronto.ca. That's sws@toronto.ca. We will, each situation may be different. So we just want to make sure all protocols are followed when it comes to whether it's donations, volunteering, placements. So there are some restrictions when it comes to COVID-19 on who can visit a shelter. And there's some restrictions on what donations a shelter can take. So when it comes to how you can connect with the shelter, I think because of ever-changing rules with COVID-19, I think it's best to connect, and you could reach us that way by, and I believe that there's a contact information that's circulating as well. But by email, it's sws@toronto.ca.
Thank you, Nicole. Suhal, are there any questions from the Q&A that we can put, that we can hear?
Yes, there is a question in the Q&A, and I will read it out. So it's, hi, I live in the area and also a student at Centennial College. Is there any opportunity for partnership with Centennial College? I am a SSW student and glad to see this opening up for the population that needs it. I think we can go to Nicole and then maybe Sharon can add.
Yes, Centennial College offers a program that actually does a lot of work on shelter services. And I know that there's existing relationships with Centennial College. So we will continue those existing relationships with Centennial College. And again, to talk about it more in depth, please email us, please connect with us. And I want to thank you for the question. I want to thank you for your enthusiasm, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Nicole. Suhal, is there another question in the Q&A?
Yes, I can ask another question. This question is the shelter taking over the entire business? If not, is there a chance of expansion if needed? Loretta?
I believe that's for Loretta. Thanks.
Hi. So right now we're committing to 100 rooms in the hotel, but there is room to grow. And if there's a need, depending on how the pandemic plays out, and if we require more space, we may eventually use all the rooms in the hotel. But right now we're only using 100 of them.
Thank you, Loretta. There's a question that came in from one of our conversations in the community, which was, are visitors allowed at this shelter? And I think that's a question for Nicole.
So no non-essential visitors are allowed at the shelter due to COVID-19 restrictions. And in general, shelters don't usually take visitors too often. It depends on the situation, mostly for everyone's safety and security, but especially during COVID-19, we're restricted to only essential clients and staff, and essential visitors. That would be maybe a healthcare provider, someone providing a service that's essential during this time. So general visitors are not allowed in the shelter.
Thank you, Nicole. There's a question that's quite similar I'd like to, that was also put to us, and maybe it's a good time to ask, is how during COVID will the residents receive physical or mental health care? And that's to Nicole once more.
Sure. Yeah, we have to, it's a huge part of the work that we do. There's definitely healthcare that is essential. And so if those supports are in person, that's still allowed and that still happens. We have, for example, we have personal support workers that come in. We have nurses that may visit depending on the client's needs. But then we also have become very creative during COVID-19, not just us, but the healthcare system as a whole. So I know that there's ways to offer, supports of all kinds, of medical supports of all kinds that are appropriate virtually. And we would be able to facilitate that. Staff have tablets that clients can use if required to help them connect with services that they need. So all physical and mental health support services continue during COVID-19. It's a part of our work all the time, and we do everything that we can to facilitate it.
Thank you. Carolyn, are there any questions with raised hands?
Thanks, Dave. I currently do not see any raised hands in the main event, and I also do not see any, or I am not hearing of any questions in the Cantonese specific language event. But I do see that there's another question in the chat box.
Yes, Suhal, will you ask?
So there's a new question. Is the business still open as a hotel or is it reserved fully for the shelter?
Thank you. And Loretta, I believe that's a question I'd like to direct to you.
Hi. The hotel may choose to continue to rent some of their rooms to anyone who chooses to stay there as a hotel, but that would be the hotel's choice.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question that we had received before this meeting, and it's, will the residents be looking for permanent housing in North Scarborough? And that's a question for Sharon. Direct that to Sharon. Sharon?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
That's okay.
Yes, certainly our goal, anytime a client accesses our shelter services, our goal is to ensure that we support them, provide them with the support that they need to return to their community. That's really our, one of our first and foremost goals. And so in this situation, we would continue to support the clients to access permanent housing. And it could very well be within Scarborough or within, we still try to support folks where they want to live. They do have that choice. And definitely our goal is to ensure that we do so. So yes, could be in Scarborough, but it could also be, Toronto, downtown. Some of our clients want to, live close to family and friends. So we support them with that as well.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. If there are no more questions unless anything else has come up, Carolyn, can you tell us?
Yeah, so Dave, maybe you can quickly go over this slide that's currently up in terms of how people can ask questions if they are on the telephone. Maybe we can leave this slide up for a minute and you can go through it again.
Sure. If you are calling in, you want to dial in the phone number and then the access code in the language that is specific that you choose. That's Mandarin or Cantonese or English. Now, once you do call in and you've entered your access code, then we will, and you have a question that's ready to be asked, you'll dial *3 into your phone. And that will allow the facilitator to know your hand is up. And once they see that or hear that, they will open up the mic so that you're able to ask your question. You will be unmuted as you ask the question, and when we get to the end of the question and answer, then you can dial *3 and it'll bring your hand down again. I'm going to read one more question and give people a chance to dial in or raise their hand by pressing *3. And this is a question that it was included in the FAQ that the counselor mentioned they've been sharing. And that's some of the questions that are most important to the site. And the question is, are shelter users required to take a COVID-19 test prior to moving to a physical distancing shelter? I'd like to direct that to Nicole, please.
Sure. So we don't force anyone to take a test. However, most of the women are always taking tests because we do screening twice a day for COVID. It's a practice that we have in place. So women staying at the shelter are screened for COVID symptoms, checked on their wellness at minimum twice per day. If anyone has symptoms or has come into contact, there's various questions that we ask that we have been given by Toronto Public Health. Then we send someone for testing. We are looking into rapid testing options so that we can have quicker access to testing for women staying at the shelter. However, we don't require them to take a COVID-19 test. However, we do require screening for COVID, at which point, if there were reasons to send someone for a COVID test, then we would send them. Transportation is arranged for them because we have a system in place that provides transportation, and we would then be able to get their results. If there's isolation required, we have an isolation process as well. Women voluntarily go for testing frequently to just be on top of their health and wellness. And again, we facilitate that and ensure that that the residents are screened for COVID quite regularly, and especially if there's a reason to believe that they might have been exposed to COVID or have COVID symptoms.
Thank you, Nicole. Suhal, are there any questions in the QA box?
Yes. So this is another question for Loretta. Is the December 31st, 2021 a definite cutoff to close the shelter? What happens if there is still a need?
Thanks, Suhal. So right now, the rooms we have leased are until December 31st, 2021. If at the time there is still a need, Toronto Public Health is still recommending that physical distancing measures remain in place. We would negotiate with the hotel owner for an appropriate extension period. But the pandemic is, it's still an evolving situation. So we'd have to wait, probably a few more months before we can determine if there will be a need or not.
Thank you, Loretta. Carolyn, is there a raised hand?
Yes, I understand that there is a raised hand on the Mandarin specific language line. So I am going to unmute Jack, our Mandarin interpreter, so that he can translate the question, and my colleague Robin is going to unmute the participant on the Mandarin specific language line. Jack,
Thank
you're
you.
unmuted.
您请讲。请您讲，请讲，请讲。Oh, where can we see information regarding the expenses of the shelter? That's my question. Is there a place where we can see expenses related to the shelter?
Thank you for that question, and I'm going to direct that to Loretta.
Hi. I'm not sure if we have this information up on a website, but I can tell you that pre-COVID, the average cost of a shelter bed was approximately $110 per day per client. Right now, as a result of COVID, it's approximately $220 per day per client. This amount includes all required supports, including lease costs, daily meals, staff, laundry, case management, and so forth. We don't have detailed site-specific costs, mainly because the pandemic response continues to remain fluid and changes daily. And as the situation evolves, the city adapts our operations as may be necessary to meet the client and community needs. So for this reason, the average cost is it's most reflective of our costs in our temporary shelters.
Thank you, Loretta. Carolyn, are there any more questions on our language-specific lines or raised hands?
Sorry, Dave, I'm just double checking just to see. Nothing on our main event, nothing on the Mandarin specific line, and nothing on the Cantonese specific line. There may be some in the
Okay.
chat box.
Thank you. Suhal, are there any more questions in the Q&A box?
Yes, there is another question. Will you have community meetings to address issues or bring partnership? I think this is for Nicole.
That's a good question. I'm going to direct that to Sharon or Nicole.
Sorry about that. Here I am. Can you repeat the question?
The question is, will you have community meetings to address issues or bring partnership?
Yes, my understanding, and Nicole, can you confirm this for me, please? In terms of our community liaison committee, at some point we will be establishing one of those. Is that correct?
Yes, so at this time, there's no committed community liaison committee due to the short-term nature of the program. However, there are plans to always engage with the community, so that's not something that we ever exclude. So we plan on meeting with local stakeholders, plan on developing those partnerships. I'm also already connected with the Community Police Liaison Committee, and I'm hoping to attend those on the shelter's behalf. So that's one place, that's one focus, that's one topic, but that's one place we will sit. Depending on, you know, how things go, it's not that we're not open to further types of tables, but we also have an open door kind of policy in terms of connecting with us. So if there's issues, if you want to have discussion about partnerships, if you want to have discussions about certain topics or learning more information, we are always available to answer those questions and look forward to connecting.
Thank you very much, Sharon and Nicole, and thank you all for your questions. Am I right to believe there are no more questions that are waiting to be asked?
There's none in the chat.
Okay. In that case, I think it's time for us to close down our session. If you could move to the next slide, Marcus, or rather the final slide, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. We got through a lot of information. There's a lot that might be new information and statistics and explanations and context, and we appreciate your attention. I hope we were able to clarify any issues or questions or concerns that you had. Following tonight's meeting, we will be summarizing all these questions and the comments received into a report that will be sent to those who've signed up on with our email. And to connect with ourselves and ask further questions, again, our email address 20milnerbusinesscourt@gmail.com, and we will get back to you, and we can take your questions and also direct those to some of the panelists who are here if we need to get further information. You can also visit again the project website at toronto.ca, physical distancing shelters, and find 20 Milner Business Court information there. A video recording of the session will also be posted to the city's YouTube channel if you would like to share with anyone who hasn't been able to attend this evening. I'd like to check if there's any of our panelists who have a closing remark that they'd like to make before we end this evening. Sharon, please.
Hi, I just wanted to acknowledge everyone's time and commitment to, attending this session tonight with us. We're always pleased when we get, a turnout and folks wanting to bring forward their questions. And we're looking forward to being welcomed into the community and looking forward to working closely with you all. And I just want to thank the City of Toronto staff and Councillor Lai that pulled this all together for us. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
If I may, Dave, is Councillor Lai here?
Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone again for your participation. And I've heard that a lot of good input. And for those of you who really wanted to help, my office is always open for you to reach out to. And we'll be very happy to relay all these messages back to SSHA. And like to really appreciate Sharon and your team from SSHA for your hard work putting this together, as well as the community engagement facilitators team. We really appreciate all your hard work and you know, pulling through this in such a short time. And let's welcome all our new temporarily neighbors with open arms. And we will get through this together. And everybody get vaccinated and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that says it all. And thank you all for being here with us this evening. And good night.
Good night.
Thank you.